The Prime Minister, does he have confidence in all his ministers? If so, why?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, because they are working harder for a brighter future for all New Zealanders.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Does he have confidence in his Minister of Education and her management of the future of education in Christchurch? And if so, why?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, because she's committing $1 billion to new schooling in Christchurch. I think what we all need to understand in Christchurch is that a major earthquake took place that's changed the patterns of where people live, but it's also presented an opportunity to deliver 21st century schools to Christchurch. And I simply make the point, we're not rebuilding the CBD in Christchurch with exactly the same buildings. We're using the opportunity to deliver arguably the most livable city in New Zealand, and there may be, just maybe, that opportunity to deliver better schooling facilities for youngsters in Christchurch. I think that's a good thing.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he stand by his undertaking that he will personally look through the response from each Christchurch school? And if so, why does he think it's necessary for a Prime Minister to personally review submissions from all these schools if he does in fact have confidence in his Minister?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, and I'd point out that the Minister is personally visiting all of the schools. So I understand that 35 of the 37 schools have agreed to that. Why am I personally doing that? Well, I take a personal interest in Christchurch. It's one of the government's 4 key priorities, and I gave that commitment to the people of Christchurch because they kept on reading nonsense from Chris Hipkins that was getting printed in the press.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Why won't his government tell the communities affected by the closure and merger proposals what all the options identified by the ministry are?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the purpose now is to go with those affected schools, to go through all of the options for those clusters, to talk about what the options might be and the reasons why, and to potentially come up with some good solutions. What the government is saying to the people of Christchurch, to those parents that are affected and to those schools, is we are listening to you, but we are also listening to the advice we are receiving about what's changing. We're going to spend $1 billion over the next 10 years.
Point of order, the Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I've been listening for quite a while. I actually asked why won't he tell us what the options are that were put forward by the Ministry of Education.
The member's welcome to repeat his question. The
Thank you, Mr.
Leader of
Speaker.
the Opposition.
Why won't his government tell the communities affected by closure and merger proposals what all the options identified by the ministry are?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't have all of that detail to hand. I know what's being proposed there, so you might be best to ask that question to the Minister herself. But the point is, we are now engaging in a full communication process with those schools.
The Leader of the Opposition. I beg your pardon. Point of order, Dr. Russell Norman.
Mr. Speaker, the question wasn't what those options were. It was why wouldn't the Minister tell us what those options were. The Minister has not addressed the question at all.
Well, I think the Prime Minister has, in that he said he doesn't have. He can't tell the House what those options are because he doesn't have them. And that kind of detail, he's recommended, should go to be directed to the Minister of Education, and that's not unreasonable. Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallett.
Mr. Speaker, no one was asking the Prime Minister what the options were. The question was, why is his Minister not releasing those options? She is the person who has refused under the OIA to release them.
Now the member is getting to debate on the matter. The Prime Minister didn't. The Prime Minister welcomed members to question the Minister of Education on the matter, and that is order. And that is not an unreasonable response from the Prime Minister. The member asked why is he not releasing that information. The Prime Minister said address that to the Minister. He's obviously made it clear that there's no government policy not to release that information. The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will he instruct the Ministry of Education through his Minister to release the Ministry's advice on the future of Christchurch education, which my office requested under the OIA, and which has been withheld by the Ministry on the basis that their quote does not appear to be overriding public interest reasons to support the release?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no, because I think the primary objective at the moment is to engage in good consultation with those schools and clusters, and that's what the government's doing.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, the Leader of the
That
Opposition.
question was really about will he instruct the ministry.
No, in fairness, the Prime Minister did say no, he wouldn't. The Leader of the Opposition.
Is it acceptable that the schools proposed to be closed or merged have not been advised as to whether they will be allowed additional time to respond to the proposals, even though they have not yet received all the relevant information from the ministry?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I may stand to be corrected, but my understanding is the Minister is talking to the schools about giving them additional time and working their way through the process. I may be wrong, but that was the last conversation I had with her.
The Leader of the Opposition.
When did the Minister first make him aware of the data areas, including data on roll numbers, number of buildings, presence of facilities, damage, that were included in the documents issued to schools as part of the rationale for the proposals?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I was aware after the schools had the information and were identified that they were in the list of schools that could be either merged or closed or whatever it might be, that there was some discrepancy between the schools' data and between the ministry. A lot of data is agreed and correct, some is not. Some of it is for very technical reasons in the way that they particularly count things. Some of it has been subsequently updated because there was a gap in one particular period. But again, all of that is largely an irrelevance because in the end, the schools, the clusters and the government are going to sit down on an agreed plan. They may disagree over time, they may choose to disagree, but the data will be agreed before we go forward.
Question. I beg your pardon. Point of order, Dr. Russell Norman.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, but it was a when question. I understand the Minister went through and listed it. He asked, the question was when did he find out? We didn't hear when. We had a long list.
I mean, I've already invited the Leader of the Opposition to repeat one question. I believe the question was a little longer than that. I can't remember now the detail of the question. And the Prime Minister, I believe, responded. His answer was reasonable. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think I made it quite clear. I said sometime after the data was released, I was aware that there was a discrepancy between what the schools thought and what the ministry thought. That was the time when I was aware. Rusty, open up your ears, son.
Order. Order. I must ask the Prime Minister to withdraw that last statement. That is not acceptable.
I'll withdraw.
Under a point of order, that sort of thing is not acceptable. Question number 3, Colin King.